You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It is Sunday, and it is time for another edition of What the Hell Are You Smoking? Denny is here. Yours truly is here. What's happening, everybody? How's your Sunday going so far?
Awesome. I'm out of beer, so it's a cracking day for me.
I am. I'm out of beer too. I had a little bit of a celebratory Saturday night because I'm playing the new college football game, and I took the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers to the Big Ten title game and beat Ohio State. So that was
impressive.
How I spent my Saturday night. But
well, to start, thank you everybody for tuning in. And I want to start the show by saying YouTube has notified me that all the views that the show is getting, they're very impressed. Seth just told me we're averaging around 700 views a show, which normally takes at least a year to get to.
Yep.
So I'm ahead of the curve. Thanks to Seth and Locked On Wild, show's doing well.
We're off to a
We
great
also
start.
had a record 72 likes in the last show, which is thank you. Because I appreciate it.
Keep them coming. Keep that like button. Smash that like button here as we get things rolling today.
Yes. And because there isn't that much to talk about hockey with the Wild right now, I mean, this is the dead zone, really. I do have a few things to talk about, though. To start out, I had a couple questions. Who's the music? 30 Days in the Holes by Humble Pie. It's a band started in 1969 for all you people who want to know. They're one of my favorites. And I'm going to start with August 25th. We've extended the show 1 hour. So it's going to be from 12 to 3. And the reason being is that we have so many guests coming on. 2 hours wouldn't do justice.
Right.
And so to start, we're going to have Alexis Pearson from the Wild and from the Minnesota Women's Hockey Club come on. She's going to bring a couple of guests. And we have Soda Pod coming on and their guests. And then we have Alex and Pat Micheletti doing a show together.
How about that?
Unbelievable. First time in history that Pat, who I've been doing shows with for a long time, and his son, Alex. This is going to be history.
Yeah, it's
going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so much fun, and we'll have other activities going on. There's going to be bags. And it's at a great spot. Zamboni's is a fantastic spot right across from the X. And we're just going to have a good time, hang out, and just enjoy it. Because at that point, it'll be about less than a month before preseason gets going. So that'll be a perfect kind of a way to wrap up the summer and to get us going for hockey season.
Yeah, and to meet all our fans. And I want to make a personal invite to Trav, to Bob, to Mike, to John. You guys know who I'm talking about. If there's any way you can make it, it would sure be nice to meet you.
Yeah, the
really
OGs.
would.
The OGs of the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Also, you can now call Zamboni's and make and reserve a table. And I can tell you right now, having Pat Micheletti there, the place is going to be packed because he doesn't do this. This is going to be a special deal. I don't think he's ever done a meet greet ever. So this is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so if you're coming, call and reserve a table so that you get a good spot. Also, we're looking for a couple volunteers to use your camera to shoot while it's live. Because we're going to have bags on the back deck. We need someone to kind of film that for who's ever shooting. And then when we do I'm going to do a walk around with the mic and talking to everybody. If we could have somebody who would like to shoot that would be awesome. So if anybody has the inclination to, be a cameraman for a day, there's your chance.
Email lockedonwild@gmail.com. There is nothing that will be required other than you can do it right off your phone. So just shoot me an email, lockedonwild@gmail.com if you're interested, and we can discuss further.
Easy peasy. Then I want to talk about the NHL. Sadly, I hate to say this, but this is I can't believe it. Well, I guess I can believe it happened, but hiring Stan Bowman in Edmonton as a GM is a black day as far as I'm concerned for the NHL. I can't see any way to justify it. What he did, doesn't go away. And to hire him as a GM when he was a terrible GM in Chicago. I feel sorry for Edmonton because things aren't going to be good in Edmonton much longer.
No, and just for those that maybe don't know the entirety of the story, obviously there was the Kyle Beach cover-up in Chicago with Joel Quenneville and Stan Bowman being involved in trying to cover up that entire situation because they put winning first. And so then Quenneville and Bowman both were essentially suspended from being able to get back into the NHL until the commissioner deemed them ready to return. And so Bowman, the moment that it was like, okay, these guys are reinstated and can look for NHL jobs, pretty much the moment that happened, the Edmonton Oilers sprinted up to Stan Bowman and offered him the GM's job, which is pretty, it just feels gross. It just feels kind of slimy, I guess is the word I would use. But, as you spoke to, Denny, and as we'll talk about a little more here, it's the NHL in a nutshell. Like, they're just
old boys club.
Yeah, they're just going to protect their own. And you want me to fire up the clip from Locked On Oilers to kind of talk about it a little further? Yes,
please do.
Okay. So my colleague at Locked On Oilers, Nick Zararis, does a great job with the show. And he had some pretty pointed things to say about this situation. And so I've got it queued up. And let's hear what he has to say.
Here we go.
This was written on July 16th of 2021. I wrote this right as the story was first developing, where the civil lawsuits against the Blackhawks were filed, and it was out in the news, but we did not know Kyle Beach's identity yet, and we did not have the Jenner and Block report yet. So I'm going to read, quote, "While most of the hockey media has moved on to the offseason, I just can't. I have struggled for the better part of a month with multiple drafts of this column because it's so delicate. I love hockey with every fiber of my existence, and it's why I can't stop thinking about this story. We all need to demand better of hockey at every single level. All of those learned behaviors that breed this culture of silence start as a 4-year-old who doesn't know any better. By the time someone's 55, the decision maker for a professional hockey team, it's who they are. Stan Bowman's journey was preordained as the son of legendary coach Scotty Bowman. He was always going to be in the club. Sure, he had to have some success along the way to get promoted, but it came at a moral and philosophical cost. This blind indifference to the team from cradle to ice has rotted the game. It is a system of indoctrination that creates a self-fulfilling cycle of depravity. It might sound hyperbolic, but the common thread that leads to cover-ups starts when you're left to your own devices amongst teammates as a child on the bus playing minor hockey. This entire conversation comes down to what people in power are willing to do to maintain it. In the case of Bowman, he has his name on the Stanley Cup 3 times and got promoted to the president of hockey operations while maintaining his GM job. Brad Aldrich's name is next to Stan Bowman's in hockey history for eternity. We're going to come back.
All right, that was the clip, but a lot to take away from that because he's dead on. Like, Stan Bowman's roots to the NHL pretty much came exclusively from the fact that his dad was a legendary head coach. And that's just kind of how the NHL operates, is if you're in the club, you stay in the club. And if you are related to somebody that's part of the club, you're in it too.
Well, and I have to say this, I've had this piece for a long time. I haven't said anything about it, but Billy in Pittsburgh has pretty much the same scenario. And I'm debating whether I'm going to talk about it or not, because who knows what would happen. But it's out there if you people want to check on Billy, but he kind of went through the same thing.
Yeah.
Where he was trying to suppress stuff. I don't get it.
And I'm not going to defend Billy, because obviously he had the situation here where he got into the verbal altercation with the teams. You had the Chris O'Hearn situation, and then you had the Andrew Haidt situation, where he got into the verbal altercation with Haidt, and there was an agreement to part ways, a mutual agreement to part ways between team and Haidt, because whatever it was that happened was bad enough that Haidt wanted nothing to do with even coming back.
Well, I kind of got an inside tip on what really happened. Now, I can't verify it, but I don't know. But this comes from inside the Wild organization, from somebody who works there, that Haidt wanted nothing to do with all those contracts that Billy was extending, and in fact was adamant that he shouldn't do it. And that is the reason for him leaving.
You're talking about O'Hearn, right?
Yes.
The assistant GM. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We still don't know what happens with that
Never
situation,
will.
because there are likely, I think Russo's even talked about this, there are NDAs involved. And so we're probably never going to hear, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story.
Yeah, well, that's just what I've been told.
Okay.
Who knows? Also, I always start the show by talking about something in my past. And this week, I went to see a gentleman named Chris Isaac at the Guthrie. And he had he's a hell of a singer. Kind of reminded me of Roy Orbison a little.
Okay.
And after the show, me and my girlfriend, we went to a bar uptown in Minneapolis. And lo and behold, who walks in but Chris Isaac? And we're sitting at the bar, and we're doing, I forget the name of the shop, but it's got lemon on the top with sugar, and they pour Sambuca over it and light it, right? Well, he had several with us, and then he got up on stage and sang for another hour. It was pretty cool as hell.
He just needed a little more fuel to get him through the rest of the show.
Well, I couldn't believe me. He just came up and sat right next to me at the bar, like, no big deal. And, of course, I introduced myself and asked him if he wanted to do a shot. And one thing led to the next. And, yeah, it was a great night.
Awesome.
All right. Also, if any of you guys are watching a podcast show that's new or about the Wild, send it to us so we can review it, so we can promote them. I'm all about promoting local podcast hockey shows. I've been doing it for years with THG up in Toronto, and on the East Coast, and that includes, even though I don't like the show, that's Judd, and of course Bar Down Beauties and Soda Pop. But if you guys, ladies, have any podcasts that you watched that aren't very popular, let us know so we can promote them. We'll have them on and, do what we can.
We'll call it the Spotlight.
There you go. The Spotlight. I like it. Also, regarding the women's professional hockey team, it's owned by the Mark Walters Group. And there's 6 members on the board, and one of them is Billie Jean King. And I don't know, Minnesota's a mess right now. They don't return no calls. They're not doing anything. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And hopefully Alexis can enlighten us when she comes on the show about what's going on. But, when you fire the general manager who put the team together that wins, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
And, it'd be nice to know what the hell's going on. I mean, that's our team.
Yeah. As far as I understand it, here's kind of the timeline of events for how this all unfolded. So when the team was announced, they were interviewing candidates for the general manager position. Ken Klee originally applied to be the general manager and didn't get it. They went with Natalie Darwitz, but then the coach that they had left like 10 days before the season started.
Yep.
Enter Ken Klee as the head coach. And from what is being reported, power struggle pretty much all year between Darwitz and Klee. And then at the end of the season, PWHL says, okay, Darwitz, you're out. We're siding with Ken Klee. There have been players that have retired. There have been assistant coaches that have been fired. All of this after winning the cup. I've never seen anything like this in any sport. It's not to say it hasn't happened. It's not to say it hasn't happened, but this is by far the most high-profile instance of this sort of thing happening that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's not a good situation.
No.
Not at all. Normally it's the coach that gets fired when something like this happens.
Yeah. But, or there's like, I don't know. It's just there was a clear divide. There were players that supported Klee. There were players that supported Darwitz. And now that Ken Klee won, it seems like he's cleaning house.
House. Yep.
The people that did not have his back, he's telling them to update their resumes.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. All right. Now, for all of you who are new to the show, and for everybody who's been with the show forever, but you don't know Seth Topol. And I thought this is the perfect time to interview Seth. So that's what's happening now. We're going to interview Seth. And he's going to tell us about how he got here. Ready, Seth?
I am ready to rock.
All right. Well, I would like you to start by how you actually got to do Locked On Wild and take it from there. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I'll start the story by saying the thing that will shock people the most. I have never played the sport of hockey, and up until probably, well, right before I started at Locked On, I really didn't seriously follow it. Like, because it was a Minnesota team, you kind of keep tabs when you're a sports fan. You kind of keep tabs on how things are going. But I didn't seriously follow the Wilds until I started at Locked On. Let's go all the way back. It was baseball. It was baseball, football, basketball, hockey in that order. Played baseball throughout high school until about my 10th grade year. Wasn't good enough to get regular playing time on JV. So that dream kind of went away. I started when I was in college. I started in sports radio. So my start in content started in sports radio back in St. Cloud. I was just one of like the K fan, like the board op guys. I would come in on the show and I would talk periodically. The probably crowning achievement of my sports radio days was that I predicted Ryan Domit signing with the Minnesota Twins back when he did, and I said, "Hey, this is going to work out."
Wow.
And he hit like 25 home runs, and I campaigned for him. And the hosts of the show were like, "I don't know if that's going to be a fit," and I'm like, "You just watch." And he hit like 25 home runs that year. So that's
awesome.
That's how I got my start. Then I went into radio full time, and I created my own little 1-hour sports show called The Scoop. 1 hour Monday through Friday, and I had a lot of interviews. I interviewed Common Man. I interviewed Michelle Tafoya. I interviewed Dick Bramer, just guests. Like, hey, let's just talk a little sports. And I did that because that's what I wanted to go into next. Is like, I wanted to be like any of those guys on K-Fan, hosting a show, just having fun out there, just bullshitting on air for 3 hours. That was my dream.
That's impressive.
To get to that point. And so I felt like I needed to come up with something to kind of get me from a small town to the city. But it just didn't work out. COVID happened, and so I'd had nothing to talk about. And so the Scoop, RIP, just there's nothing to talk about, and so I couldn't keep a sports show going. That's when I got into podcasting. I hosted a podcast called Lines and Wines to start, hockey podcast, and me and my co-host, we would grab various bottles of wine, we'd drink them, we would record while we were drinking the wine. And so there were more than a few episodes in which I was pretty inebriated by the time we were done. And it was just so much fun. It was new. It was something that I looked into it and I didn't see anybody else doing anything like that. So it's kind of fun and unique here in the Minnesota podcast scene. And we upped that, me and my co-host upped that to Mini Ice is what we called it. And it was a podcast that was also a website. And so we were writing articles covering the Minnesota Wild. We were doing shows. We were doing post-game stuff. And then that went away because we had a little bit of a falling out. And right at that time, the previous host of Locked On Twins, who I had on the Scoop quite a bit, Nash Walker, he texted me and he said, Locked On Wild is looking for a host. Would you be interested at all? And I looked into the format, and my first thought was, how am I going to come up with stuff to talk about on a daily basis? Like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm the right fit. And then I talked about it with a couple of my friends, and my best friends said to me, like, take the leap is what he said. He said, you want to do content, like, you're good at it. Take the leap And so I said, yes, let's do it. And I remember my first episode. You always remember your first. I remember my first episode like it was yesterday. It was 32 games into the season. I took over on, I think it was March 29th. 32 games into the season, I did the good, the bad, and the ugly. And guess what the ugly was at that time? It was Minnesota Wild special teams. How things have changed.
Yeah.
And so started with Locked On, started to kind of figure out how to do this. Covered the Wild against Vegas that first partial season that I was on. Actually, I should back up slightly more because the way that I really fully got into hockey was when the NHL resumed the season during COVID in the bubble. And they said, all right, first day back, we have games starting at 11 a.m. and running all day because we're in one spot, just going to cycle teams in and out.
Yep.
I sat and watched from 11 a.m. to well after midnight every single game because there was nothing else. And I said,
That's impressive.
I need sports. I need sports. And so I'm gonna tune in and see what happens. And I watched the whole day, and that was it. I was like, I can get behind this. This is a sport that is interesting to me. And so fast forward to taking over Locked On Wild. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense to cover a sport with an outsider's perspective. That has, I think, been probably the crowning achievement of this show. Is knowing enough about sports to be able to cover a sport that I never played, that I didn't seriously watch until the last 3 years, but covering it from an outsider's perspective. And obviously the numbers speak for themselves. The show has grown leaps and bounds. And Denny, you can attest to this, being one of the original listeners when we fired up the YouTube channel. I pride myself on being confident in what I do. And if my opinion is wrong, fine. But I'm going to stand by what I say with conviction. And it's just, you're not going to get me trying to convince the audience of something that I don't myself believe. That's the big key. Is we want to see these teams be successful. We want to see the Minnesota Wild hoist the Stanley Cup. I want to do everything in my power to help get them there. But if they're doing stuff that I don't agree with, I'm going to say something. And that's just telling it how it is.
Let me stop you there for a second.
Sure.
I have to inject this. The first show that he did, he told me he had 14 views. And there were 6 of us in the box. And that was Travis and Bob and Mike and John, I think. And I don't know who the other 2 were, but we're the original 4 for the first show. And in all his shows, he got one "What the hell are you smoking?" from me, and he wrote me back, and he was pissed. Remember that?
I remember that.
Yes. And then I explained to him that I've said I've done that to the best, from Sid Hartman to everybody else. That's part of having a conversation. You don't have to agree with it, but that's how our deal started, really.
Yeah, I wear that as a badge of honor.
and then about a year into the show, I asked him if he would like some help with the show, and he said yes. And today, look at where we are.
It's the growth has been the most fun part about this, I think, Denny. Looking at the numbers from the previous hosts of this show. I think the high water mark for a full year for Locked On Wild before I took over was 24,000 downloads from an audio perspective. I think that was the high water mark for a full year before I took over. And now that's a bad month. That's a bad month for the show. Like it's up now to 40,000 downloads a month. The YouTube numbers obviously have just grown like crazy. But you know, the big thing that I've learned is it's about just being there. Like you don't, even on the days where you don't, and trust me, there have been plenty, especially with like long work days. The days where you don't feel like doing an episode are the ones where it's most important to do it.
Yep.
I've had so many. I've had way more than I'd like episodes where I get done and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about this. Like, I don't know if people are going to like this. And then I post them and they end up being like the best episodes of the week. But it's just about being there consistently. And, you know, the thing that I think I pride myself on most is being able to come up with stuff that is relevant to what is going on right now on a daily basis. It's not easy.
That's hard to do.
It's not easy. We're in the absolute like bare bones portion of the off season. Like
everybody's on vacation.
There is nothing going on. But just finding ways to keep things relevant, keep things topical, and to keep things pushing forward. Like that's I think my biggest skill in hosting this show. And from what Hop is saying in the comments here too, having the radio voice doesn't hurt either. Hoptics, I got to say, out of all the collabs you do with the other locked-ons, you've probably got the best radio voice and ability to just talk in general. That's it right there.
There you go. As I told Seth a long time ago, I know talent when I see it, and I want to help you. And that's really was the beginning for me doing my thoughts of the day, of which I'm gonna do that now on a regular basis. Again, I've had a lot of people ask me why I'm not doing thoughts of the day. Well, I figure with my own show, but I guess people miss my thoughts of the day, so I'm gonna start. I'm back on track with that.
Excellent.
Go ahead. Next step.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story of how I got going with this. And you know, it's just where do we go from here? This is part of I think the 2.0 that I talked about over the summer is that I want to take what we do coverage wise with Locked On Wilds and add it to the other hockey entities that exist in this state. So we're going to do over the course of the year, they'll just be probably weekly episodes for each topic. We're going to do college. We're going to do PWHL.
Iowa.
We're going to do Iowa. Just as complementary pieces to what we already do here, because honestly, it's really more like a Locked On state of hockey here in Minnesota. So that's kind of where I see the show going next. But honestly, like I do it because I enjoy it. Like even trust me, I remember the game this past year where the Wild lost to Dallas like 8-3. And I think there were 7 special teams goals. I was at the XL Energy Center, and I'm telling you, I was heated to the point that other people in the press box were turning to look. But I love it. I love it because no matter if they win or lose, there's always something to talk about. And, you know, coming up with some of the funny bits, like the Christmas song that I did where we kept mentioning John Maryland. It's like, why is he still here? That's the kind of funny stuff that I like to bring to this too, because you can be serious covering the team. You can take a more lighthearted approach to it. I figure why not do both? Like, let's keep it fun. Let's keep everything rolling. And the train marches on every
Yes,
single
it
day.
does. Well, as I've told you, and I'm going to tell everybody here, you have a lot of talent, and your growth in hockey, understanding what's going on in the game, has grown considerably. And I'm very impressed because, I've been watching hockey for a long time. And you're picking up things now that people just don't see.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. And
that would be
you just got started.
That could lead into a great question of what am I looking for during a game, which would be, I think, a good spot to go.
Yeah.
Because I should talk too about how we got into the press box, because that was an experience too.
Okay.
Obviously, when the show started, it was coverage from afar. Doing post games after, right from my desk, and it got to the point where it's like, it'd be really fun to go up into the press box and do this. And so got turned away the first year we tried to apply for credentials. The second year went for a single game just to see, hey, let's see if we can get our foot in the door and make this a reality. That time got a yes. And so first game ever, nervous as hell. Going into the press box, I am scared to death that I'm going to overstep or go somewhere I'm not supposed to. And I'll never forget it. I tweeted out a picture from up in the press box, and Joe O'Donnell, radio voice, he came over. He said, I saw your tweet, had to introduce myself. And that's when I knew, like, okay, the show has made enough good progress to where I don't even have to go introduce myself. People know what's going on.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah, it was great. And I don't even remember if they won or lost that game. I think they won, but ever since, it's been as many games as I can get to, because being there in person just allows you the opportunity to see everything that the camera doesn't catch.
Absolutely.
Like 90% of the action and what players are doing away from the puck. If guys are getting into a little bit of a skirmish and you don't see it on the ice, but just to see the way players move. Kirill Kaprizov, for those that have not had a chance, I love watching him do his thing off camera, because 2 or 3 times a game, Kaprizov will come in off the bench and just kind of glide to the top of the opponent's zone and just wait until somebody can potentially get him the puck for a home run outlet pass. And he is just as quiet as possible in those moments. For somebody who is as loud of a skater as he is, by how much he moves and all that, it's really fun to see him just try to be like invisible out there, to set up potential plays. And, those are the kinds of things that you don't see on camera. And those are the things that I look for, is like, what are guys doing without the puck? Who's trying to put themselves in position to get a breakaway? Who is trying to get something started? Like Logan Stanley last year going after Kirill and Marco Rossi stepping in to back him off. That was awesome.
That was huge. Yep.
But it's just stuff like that. It's like, what are we not seeing on the TV, and how is it impacting the game? That's the thing that I love to watch, because it's a back and forth. 2 teams playing in a game is a back and forth, and there are moments where one team may chirp the other. There was a game against Winnipeg, I think, where there was a TV timeout, or no, it was the end of the period, and there were like 7 Wild players that stayed on the ice to talk to the officials, and it was all the guys that you would think would be in position to fight. And at that point, I'm like, okay, something's going to happen here. So it's just
Yeah.
it's just stuff like that. I just love kind of the inner workings of games, which is why I go.
Well, before I go further, I want to inject something here. As I've told everybody before, I watch a stream called NHL 66 out of Sweden, and they don't have 15 different camera angles. They have the camera watching the whole game.
Oh, really?
Yes, and they are so good. You can watch any game you want as many times as you want for $10 a month, and you don't have all the Homer stuff. They just have a camera on the game, and you get to watch the whole game just like if you were there. That's what's so nice about it. So just another thought for anybody who's, although it looks like Bally's is back in business, unfortunately, because I really don't like Bally's.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hugely in favor of just making it as simple as possible to watch the games. I really do hope the Wilds take a long look at what the Dallas Stars are doing. Because that should be it. Like all of these different teams and networks have gotten caught up in the money. The goal should be to get the games on TV to the largest audience possible. You can make up the money that you lose by charging people to watch. You can make that up with advertising easy. Because who wouldn't want to be an advertising partner? Like, you think the Dallas Stars are going to have trouble getting sponsors for that stream that they're doing? No
problem. And plus the blackouts of the home games is what really pisses me off. Yeah. I don't get it. It's ridiculous. That's why I went to NHL 66. They stream everything. There's no blackouts. Every game in the league, you can watch whatever you want. And they don't pay me to say this. I like them that much. All right. Where to now? Why don't you talk about your goals and aspirations for
sure,
for what's upcoming?
Well, if I get to the point of being able to do this full time, I would love to, because I think covering a team, the inner workings, is an exciting challenge. Being somebody that covers a team on a daily basis, there's a lot to talk about, but it keeps things kind of fresh and exciting. Like, obviously, you're talking about games, win or lose, but there are other stories that, like, this is where kind of writers come in, where there are other stories to be told of what's going on during the season. And, I just want to try to get into some of that stuff this year too. We're going to cover the games, obviously, a ton, but I want to try to uncover some of the other things that are going on throughout the course of the season. Like, hey, you guys just played 7 straight road games. What's the hardest part about being away from home for that long? Just stuff like that. And obviously that means more player interviews, because as a lot of people saw, Locked On Senators knocked one out of the park by interviewing Brady Tkachuk last week. And I want to do stuff like that with players that are equivalent on the Minnesota Wild roster to Brady Tkachuk. So that's a goal for this year, is to get not just some of the third or fourth line guys. Like, I'm going right to the top. And so,
as you should.
Yeah, that'll be something that we try to add in this year. I want consistent Iowa coverage too. Like,
yes, I was going to bring that up.
There are a lot of really fun players on that Iowa Wild roster.
Oh.
And so I want to be able to see, I want to be able to get the inside as to, like, how things are going with these guys. And so, those are some of the things that I want to really add this year. And another thing that I'm going to add, like what we did with the Brad Bombardier interview, where if there's a press conference, we're going to take that and cut it up and react to some of the stuff that we saw. Like I'm going to be working on some new styles of episodes kind of in that vein too, because it's one thing for me to talk about stuff. It's another to hear it from people themselves and react to it. So that'll be another one.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm really excited about the Iowa Wild. They've had top 5 talent for the last 3 years. Unfortunately, they didn't have everything to go with it. And I'm talking about coaching and management. Now I think they got the management in place. I really like what they're doing. And the way they talk about hockey, I'm extremely impressed. I'm not sold on McLean. That's one of Billy's boys, and yeah, we'll see. If it was up to me, I'd get somebody else, but what my thoughts. But yeah, I'm very excited for the Iowa Wild this year. They got more talent on this team this year than they've ever had.
Yep.
And I'm really, in fact, we should go down and see a couple games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else we got here?
I've got a couple of suggestions that I'll get to, and then
okay.
Because Tracy wants to know, can we still get a Duhaime episode? Yes, I'm working on that now that Duhaime has landed in Washington.
Yep.
Going to try to circle back with him and see how things, because I want to know how Colorado went after he was traded, what it was like to be traded. I want to dive into all that stuff with him, and then talk about playing with Ovechkin. How does he think that's going to go? Where does he see Washington going with everything that they've done? So I'm working on a Duhaime reunion. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done probably closer to the start of the season when everybody's back. But then Mike too says to interview some of the support staff, medics, equipment folks. They are what really makes the NHL operate. That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, it is. I would have never thought of that.
Honestly, I would love to just do like like the equipment managers. What do you guys all do? Because I think
lot.
There are opinions and assumptions as to some of the stuff that they do day to day, but I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that they do that people don't even know about. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've seen a documentary on the equipment manager, what they go through for away games, and it's unbelievable what they have to do.
Yeah, I don't doubt that in the slightest. John also saying, let's get Bombardier on for a show. I agree. That would be a great idea. So if anybody
I like Brad.
That interview, that press conference that he did at development camp, I can't say enough how impressed I was with that. Yep. Because, that was a big question last year with the season that the Iowa Wild had. I remember we were all kind of talking about it in the comments, like, is it a development problem with this team? Is it a coaching problem, like with this organization? And I think
it's both.
I think it has moved towards a coaching issue now, having seen what the players are working on and having seen some of the stuff that Bombardier is looking at. So, yeah, I'll work on getting him on for an episode too.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot more interviews this year.
Yeah, I have no problem, doing episodes solo, which is that's an adventure in and of itself. But we're gonna try to get some perspective from in the organization this year. And I will say this right now. I'm gonna get Bill Guerin on too.
As you should. Although I highly doubt he will come on if I'm here. So Billy's blunders aren't stopping anytime soon.
that may be one where I get him on to get him familiar with the show and have him on for a rounds table after. So we'll see.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
I'm thinking Hines too. Like I want to just I don't want there to be anything off limits for the show in terms of who to talk to and who to get on as guests. Like the Brady Tkachuk interview with Locked On Senators really like they kicked the door down where it's like, well, if they can get Brady Tkachuk, why can't I get Matt Boldy or Brock Faber? And so the answer to that question is we're going to.
Well, I don't know how many podcasts Ottawa has, but Wild on 7, they're so vanilla that it's hard to watch them. I mean, it's a good show, it's well produced and all the good stuff, but they ask nothing.
Yeah,
and
Wild on 7th is very much like it's what I call like a vibes show. They're interviewing the guests, but it's more the guests themselves as opposed to like the actual, like they don't do a ton of deep diving into like the actual team and how the team is doing, those kinds of things. So, they ask some good questions, but if you're going there to get like the beat on how the team is doing, you're not gonna get a ton of that.
Which brings me up to this. I'm going to try and get Craig Leopold on. Who better to talk to about the team than the owner? And I'm going to work on that. Because, I know a few people.
Yeah.
I don't like to name drop or nothing, but I know some people in the hockey world.
Got some contacts.
And I got a few. And I don't know if he's ever really done an interview. I can't think of one.
I think the only one that I've seen him do was he was on Wild on 7th this past season. But that podcast too is owned by, like, it is a Minnesota Wild production.
Exactly.
So,
and they don't ask no hard questions. They don't ask anything. It's just, it's a puff piece. Yeah. Craig Leopold. He's in my sights now.
Dial it in. Dial it in.
Any questions for us?
Yeah, anybody, we've got a few minutes left here today. If anybody has any questions, drop them in the comments, and we'll get to them here before we are done for the day. But don't forget, we've also got, Denny, the central bit to the show before we're done today. We've got to get to what the hell are you smoking?
Oh, yeah, I missed that last week. And it still goes to Jessie. She gets one more. Her bid on why it's a good idea to trade Rossi takes the cake. She's too good. I mean, she's excellent at what she does. And I'm pretty sure she's just doing it to get hits and to stir up something, because I don't think she really believes it. But if she does, you get my what the hell are you smoking?
This point in the off season is really when we get to kind of separate shows, because there are some that there's a lot of stuff that is pretty typical of off season content, rankings episodes, or we did a Mount Rushmore. But the difference is, you're getting that once a week from particular shows, whereas that may be one episode out of a full week for me, but the rest of the week it's let's try to figure out this team a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to be extremely busy here when the season starts, because I know a lot of you, and have said so, you look for my insight on the hockey team. And believe me, I can't wait. we'll have so much content to talk about. It's going to be awesome.
We're going to have to call it Denny's Digest or something.
Well, again, just remember August 25th. It's never been done before, and I'm hoping it goes viral in the hockey world. I mean, when you got Alexis and Alex and Pat, the guys from Soda Pod, it's going to be one hell of a show. I hope we see you there so that we can have a beer and shoot the shit. I mean, really, that's all it's about.
Yeah.
Meeting our people. And with that, I guess it's time to end the show.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for yet another edition of What the Hell Are You Smoking? Program note for next week. I will be in South Dakota at a family reunion over the weekend.
Yes.
So next week's show will be Monday night at 8.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Monday at 8. I'm going to schedule it in advance so people are aware of the time of the change. But Monday at 8 for next week. We'll still have regular episodes throughout this week too, so don't worry about that. And then throughout the month of August, going to get every single Locked On NHL show on for crossovers. It's going to be like 2-a-days in August, I think, because I'll still have plenty to talk about, but getting an opportunity to talk to all these other Locked On hosts, it's a lot of fun. And unless we do these, you don't really get a chance to, like the Eastern Conference teams, we don't get a chance to talk to those guys hardly at all. So,
which I should bring up. I have, I don't know if anybody watches Hot Take Hockey, but I got Johnny coming on from Hot Take Hockey. He's on vacation right now, but he'll be on the show this month. And he'll give us his insight on the East Coast teams.
Yes. And the Minnesota Wild, because I think nationally we're starting to see that people are not super high on the Wild this year.
Oh, I can tell you right now we're ranked from 26th to 29th.
Well,
I was going to bring that up for next show, but I'll just give you a couple. I'm involved with a lot of the podcasts up in Canada, and they don't like the Wild at all. They're just like me.
That might not be a bad idea for next week's show, is to just like try to sort out the teams that are better, the teams that are definitely worse, and which other teams are going to be kind of in the same area as the Wild. Like, where are we at as we get closer to the NHL season?
Well, things are going to change before the season starts. But as it stands right now, having Gus and Flower, with Flower being the starting goalie, as many are saying, they have us at the bottom. And as I told them, we'll be fighting for last place.
It's gonna be a long season if that's the case, but that just means that I'll do more draft coverage, which isn't a bad thing either.
Well, as you know, a long time ago when they signed Fleury, the only reason they did it so they could trade Gus. The only reason they're going to trade Gus is their only move.
Yeah.
My problem is, what does that do to improve the team? They got no spots, thanks to Billy's blunders. All they're going to get is a pick. I'd much rather have Gus, Flower retire, bring up Wallstead. Wallstead isn't even on the roster right now. We got a lot of stuff to talk about next week.
Yeah, and it's frustrating too, because you make like 2 or 3 roster moves and the team looks way different and is like a promising roster, but
yes,
it just feels like there just is no desire to make those 2 to 3 moves. And so I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Yep. We'll know soon enough.
Yes, we will. All right, everybody. I think that is going to wrap it for today. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to hit that like button before you head out for the day.
Yes.
And make sure to subscribe as well if you have not already. We've got a big announcement coming on Wednesday, I think. Tuesday, Wednesday. So stay tuned. Huge announcement that I will talk about fully then for the month of August to get us closer to the season. So stay tuned, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.